Hi, Gemini, and welcome to your April 2024 horoscope. If you have heard, April has a lot going on. So we have a solar eclipse, we have Mars conjunct Saturn, and we also have Jupiter conjunct Uranus. So yes, that's quite a lot. But let's get into the day by day so you're aware of what you can expect in a little bit more detail. On April 3rd, Venus is conjunct Neptune in your 10th house. It might feel like a very dreamy and loving day, and you might be expressing that in your career. And it's almost as if you're motivated by compassion and this greater, spiritual motivation when it comes to your career. So it's actually a really beautiful aspect to have there. Keep in mind that if there is anybody that you have trouble setting boundaries with, that sometimes can maybe take advantage of you a little bit more easily, that on this day, because you're so open and compassionate and loving, it might be especially difficult to set the boundaries with them. So it might be easier to just keep your distance from them during this day. On April 5th, Venus enters Aries, or your 11th house, and as it does that, it also sextiles Pluto in your 9th house. So I did a really extensive live on Pluto through all of the houses. So go ahead and watch that. I'll link it here so that you can understand Pluto in your 9th house a little bit better. But if we were to provide just one sentence about it, you're really figuring how to find your power when it comes to the ideals and values that you have. Really stepping into forming your own belief system. And with Venus in your 11th house, you might find yourself valuing friendship and community a lot more from this day onwards. And it's almost as if there are things happening with your friendships and with your community that are really triggering you and helping you reflect on your values and beliefs. On April 8th, there is a solar eclipse in your 11th house. So this solar eclipse is a new moon, which means that both the sun and the moon are in the sign of Aries in your 11th house. This eclipse is in the decan ruled by the sun. So I have a feeling that this eclipse might mean that we're acting a little bit more from our ego than from a genuine place. So just keep that in mind before you do anything permanent during the solar eclipse. And I usually don't talk about Mercury in these horoscopes just because it moves quite fast. So usually its changes and effects are not super meaningful or super earth-shattering to us on the day-to-day. However, keep in mind that during this eclipse, Mercury is retrograde. So, especially if we're acting from our ego, maybe we're saying things that we don't really mean, that maybe it's more our ego that's being hurt and wants to protect itself. And Mercury is in retrograde. It might be that others are really misinterpreting what we're saying, taking it to heart, and being hurt by it. So yeah, just something to keep in mind about this solar eclipse. For you specifically, Gemini, it's in your 11th house. So there could be something happening with your friend group around the solar eclipse. So just again, continue to connect to yourself and check in if the way you're acting is actually coming from a pure and loving space. On April 10th, we have Mars conjunct Saturn in your 10th house. So you might have some amazing, great ideas of what you could do with your career. Maybe you want to start a new project that's actually going to, when successful, give you a promotion perhaps. But because Mars is conjunct Saturn, it might feel like your actions are coming to a halt, and Saturn is asking you to slow down, to reconsider, asking you to be patient, to take it slow, maybe asking you to go another way. Saturn doesn't necessarily say that we cannot get to our end destination, but it's rather asking you to examine, can you maybe get there in another way? In a realistic way, in a more mature way as well. On April 17th, Venus is conjunct the North Node in your 11th house. So if you remember, we had the solar eclipse on the 8th of April, which was also happening with the North Node in your 11th house. So now that Venus has slowly made its way over to the place where the eclipse happened, it's almost as if this day is a less emotionally charged day, allowing you to reflect on the eclipse. So if the eclipse was quite intense for you and maybe you didn't get a chance to reflect on what was happening, it could be on this day that you're able to take a more reflective stance on the eclipse and to be able to see it from a bit more of a healthy distance and really reflect on what happened and what that means for you personally. And then on April 20th, we reach one of the biggest events, which is Jupiter conjunct Uranus. For you, Gemini, this is happening in your 12th house. You've had Jupiter in your 12th house for almost a year. And with Jupiter in your 12th house, you might have been experiencing an extra attention on your inner world, on your emotions and your thoughts, perhaps your limiting beliefs that are holding you back from certain things in life, from certain achievements in life. And you might have found it a bit more easier to be able to identify these things and to be able to adjust course. At the same time, you've had Uranus in your 12th house for much longer than Jupiter has been there. With Uranus there, you probably have also been experiencing a lot of ups and downs when it comes to your internal world and your thoughts and how you view yourself and your ability to take care of yourself internally. And when these two meet together, it's almost as if you're given a moment to sit down and reflect on what both of them are teaching you. When you have the highest of highs and able to identify your limiting beliefs and just, get rid of them in such an easy and quick way and able to see the benefits that come from that. But also at the same time, you have these moments that are the lowest of lows and it feels like nothing's going the way you want it to. What are these two ends of the spectrum teaching you? What have they taught you? So with this Mars and Uranus conjunction, you might start to really get some realizations on what it means to take care of yourself mentally. What are some practices that you can really finally cement into your routine that allow you to take care of your internal world? And during the Mars and Uranus conjunction, the Sun actually is also just freshly entered Taurus. So that really brings a lot more attention into your 12th house again. And also Jupiter and Uranus are sextiling Mars in your 10th house. So it could also be that there is something in your career that is triggering you and helping you reflect and come to those realizations on how you can take care of your internal world. Just a day later, on April 21st, the Sun moves like a degree more into Taurus. And as it does that, it squares Pluto in your 9th house. With the Sun entering your 12th house, you might find that April is a little bit more of a month where you want to spend alone time and not so much time outside with other people. It could be that all of the things that you are discovering and contemplating about your inner world are really challenging your belief systems and what you thought your belief systems were, the values and the morals you stood for before. And it might be that you need to adjust your belief system, your morals, and your values based on all of the internal work that you're doing. On April 24th, there's a full moon in Scorpio in your 6th house. A full moon means that the sun and the moon are opposite from each other. So the sun is in Taurus in your 12th house. So there's still this focus of your internal world and taking care of your mental health. But with this full moon bringing in the sixth house into the conversation, it's almost as if all of the knowledge and things you're learning when you're taking alone time and reflecting on what's happening inside you, that it's giving you some insights on how you can use your routine to support you even better. How can you implement a daily practice that allows you to show up as a more happy and loving person? How can you perhaps adjust your diet or your exercise to also allow you to take better care of yourself internally and feel more energetic and more excited for day-to-day life? On April 28th, we have Mars conjunct Neptune in your 10th house. This is actually a really interesting aspect to have in your house of career, Gemini. It's almost as if there are some actions on this day, some ideas that you want to pursue that are motivated with this sort of lofty spiritual goal, with this goal of helping others, uniting others, acknowledging that we're all one. So I'm really curious, if you're watching this around this day, or after the 28th, then please let me know down in the comments what these ideas are and what is it that you're pursuing around this day, because I would be super curious to know. And finally, we close off the month on April 30th with both Venus and Mars returning to the place where they feel home. So Mars is entering the sign of Aries and Venus is entering the sign of Taurus. I really see this closing of the month as a breath of fresh air, or like a sigh of relief. Whew, we've survived crazy April. And finally, it feels like things are no longer upside down. There's this sort of glimpse of like, whew, okay, I think things are sort of the right way up. And it might feel like your ability to express both your anger as well as more your loving nature comes in a more natural and intuitive way, and it might not feel as much of a struggle as it did in April, when both Mars and April were in signs that weren't so comfortable for them. So overall, Gemini, it's a good time to focus on your career during April, to really put your energy there, and as well on your community and friends. Towards the end of the month, there's also quite a bit of emphasis in your 12th house. So I would also encourage you, among all these amazing things, among, hustling and doing your best in your career, among taking care of your friends, to try to also carve out some time to take care of yourself as well. I hope you enjoy April, Gemini. Let me know down in the comments which aspect, which transit you're the most excited about. And if you want to make sure you catch the May horoscope, then make sure you subscribe. I hope to see you again soon.